Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. You know things are getting serious when even Cointelegraph is writing glowing articles about XRP after crapping all over that coin for about a decade at this point. But this is glowing, and you just see more and more and more of this from Cointelegraph. Here's the headline: Can XRP price reach $20? These charts say full bull phase is still ahead. Now, of course, in recent times, they still have written some negative articles, which I've highlighted on the channel and mocked them rightfully so, including during the consolidation period over the last half a year. Oh, it's just hilarious. Think about this. XRP moving sideways, sure, but that's healthy consolidation, and that was happening at a time when pretty much every other altcoin, when priced against the dollar, if you look at it on a chart, it wasn't moving sideways and consolidating. The vast majority of those coins were moving down to one degree or another. And still, they had the audacity to write these articles drumming up fear as though XRP was going to fall. Well, we knew that was stupid, S-T-O-O-P-I-D, stupid. And now all these months have passed and we were right, we're vindicated again. And XRP has blasted off, hitting yet another new all-time high as $3.65 the other day. And it's now in price discovery. So I'm going to share with you perspective from 9 different XRP chart analysts. And suffice it to say, liftoff has begun. Absolutely, we are in price discovery. And I know, at least at the time I'm recording this, XRP, it's hovering closer to where the all-time high is. I know that. It's not going to stay here. It's absolutely not going to stay here. I mean, I'm just telling you, you should not be surprised if XRP ends up hitting double-digit price action, maybe even closer to $15 or $20. If that happens, you shouldn't be surprised. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. So XRP now, it's $3.42, so is $20 crazy? Not so much. I don't know if it will happen, but it's absolutely not crazy. But take a look at this. I'm not going to read this whole article, but let's look at the top one. They're highlighting something. I actually talked about this literally the other day. Check out this. Popular crypto analyst Dom said that although XRP hit multi-year highs on Friday, a few other charts haven't really signaled full bull just yet. One of these is market share, or the XRP dominance chart, which shows that XRP is back at the weekly resistance level around 5.5%. This resistance has held XRP down for over 2,200 days. Now, folks, I talked about, literally yesterday I talked about this. And that's another reason this is exciting, though. So yeah, the XRP dominance chart, that part, it doesn't look like that's full-on broken out. So think about that. Hasn't full-on broken out, the dominance chart, but XRP USD chart has broken out. We're already where we are without the dominance starting to do stuff to melt faces. We're already this high. Do you know... Do you know what insanity is going to unfold? Like, talk about... No one's going to have a facelift. Every single human's face is going to be melted. We're going to have to manufacture some new faces. That's what's going to happen here. And here's the quote. Anytime XRP dominance broke the current resistance in the past, we saw a 2x shortly after. End quote. That's what he stated here. So under these circumstances in the past, a 2x. And he said, quote, if history repeats after a successful break, this would land us near a target of $7 to $10, depending on how much the rest of the market moves. End quote. Yeah, and so the reason it matters as far as the rest of the market, because obviously 12% of XRP, what that means in terms of dollars, well, it depends on what the overall market is worth. 12% of a market cap, what's the market cap for the asset class now? 3.8 trillion. Okay, well, 12% of that is less than if the market cap were 7.6 trillion, which would be double that roughly. So the higher the market cap for the entire asset class, the better, even if the percentage of dominance for XRP didn't move. But it's going to, because that would be the historical norm. That's the thing here. That's why this is exciting. And we are at that moment. Here's a post from chart analyst TechDev. He shared this with his 536,000 followers on X. He simply wrote, each base is always longer. Liftoff has begun. And so you know the entire crypto asset class is going to go berserk. It really is. And I just believe that XRP will continue. It already is. So to be clear, XRP already is the best performer out of the top 100 coins since the election. And I believe that's going to persist. Everything will start going nuts, but XRP is going to stay at the top or close to it. That's my bet. Here's a post from chart analyst Crypto Wizard. This is an ETH BTC chart. He said, the bat signal. It's sounding the alarm. The 200-day EMA on ETH against Bitcoin has been reclaimed with a solid bullish breakout. It's going to be a great few weeks for altcoins. Don't spoil the fun, Bitcoin. Right. And so that's always the thing. If Bitcoin sneezes, I've joked in the past, just redo all of your analysis for your altcoin. Just like chart guys, just redo it all. If Bitcoin sneezes, it's done. So if it does start to drop, which is possible in the short term, yeah, I mean, it would delay just to whatever degree. But here is yet another analyst understanding, no, this is the time for things to break out and get a little bit cuckoo. You know what I'm saying? This is exactly the moment. And this is important, even if you're an XRP holder and you don't care about ETH. Ethereum, when it starts to rampage, that has kicked off alt season. And here it is gaining ground against Bitcoin. The same thing's going to happen with XRP. Wait till you see, when this chart's done, we're going to come back and do some reflection here. And I will be happy to show you all the charts, including an XRP BTC chart, because it already looks glorious. I mean, if you just look from November onward, it's just ridiculous how much ground XRP has gained against Bitcoin, which I told you was the most probable thing, because XRP was at, leading up to the election last year, XRP was at historic lows against Bitcoin. And so the idiots out there said, oh, it's low, that means it's going to keep getting lower. And then I showed you, actually, every single time that XRP's priced that low against Bitcoin, what followed was a massive pump. That was literally true. This isn't rocket science. History rhymes with itself. And so what do you know? It rocketed again. And this is a moment where it makes sense logically for XRP to have its second pump of the cycle, and it's already begun. It already is happening. We don't have to wonder if it's underway, folks. It is underway. It just doesn't go perfectly up in a straight line. But it could potentially be over sooner than later, which is fine by me. Like, I'll take the life-changing wealth. I'm happy to have that finally happen. I'll tell you this, everything that I've invested in crypto, especially XRP, it's worth a fortune compared to what I initially paid. And all I did was nothing. I bought, then I waited. That's that. No trading necessary. I didn't need a buy course and research how to trade and Elliott wave analysis and learn about Fibonacci's, which I'm pretty sure is actually just a fine Italian restaurant. I don't know what the hell those are. You don't have to know any of that stuff. You don't have to know how to read charts. I mean, I pick up stuff just because I keep following so many chart analysts. There's certain things I've picked up over the years, but you don't need that stuff. The only reason I know any of that is because it's fun, since you have skin in the game, to track what people think, and then so just just by doing that, you do pick up certain things. You don't need to be an analyst. You don't need to be a chart guy. You don't need to be a trader. You need to have broad exposure to the asset class, like I've had since 2017. And then you wait, and if you don't buy a bunch of stupid stuff, you get into the large caps, maybe some mid caps, you're going to make some serious money. Some life-changing money. That's it. That's the truth. Nobody wants to say that. They want to sell you their courses if they're a YouTuber, probably. You don't need it. You can do that if you want. You can try if you want to try and be a trader, but just understand 90 to 95% of them lose money, and you don't need it. Regular people like you and I'm just a regular dude, and nothing special about me because I have a YouTube channel. We absolutely can achieve life-changing wealth, and many of us do. Mine's already just ridiculous. And I hope that's true for me, because so many of you have been here for many years, and I really hope, and I know it is for many of you, I hope it's true for many of you, and I believe that it is true for so many of you listening, because you've been doing the right thing. You've been vigilant, you've held on, and now we're getting ours. Here's a post from Mikey Bull Crypto. He says, Ethereum to $4,000 next week seems possible. Okay, so I just wanted to mention here, so that's another analyst that's obviously bullish on ETH BTC. So great, already cited why. It's great for alt season. It's an indicator anyway. If Ethereum gets back to $4,000, that's not even an all-time high, mind you. If XRP matches that market cap, that would put XRP at $8 roughly. And there's historic precedent for XRP to match the Ethereum market cap, which is why that's exciting. So even just that would put XRP at $8. That's why I keep saying, getting XRP into double digits, not a huge ask. You're not having to move into, heaven and earth to make that happen here. That's a pretty low bar. It's not that bad. It's not that hard to hit. Here's another one from Mikey Bull Crypto. XRP USD says XRP moved to a cycle peak, has started 2017 playbook aligning. And folks, this is exactly what I've been insisting is the case. Look at this, and you can see he's got the RSI down here. It's doing the same thing. You're going to see a top again here, and it's the same thing that happened. So where we're at, my mouse is moving around. That's where we're at now. First pump, sideways half a year. Second pump. Here we go, 2017. First pump, sideways half a year. Second pump. There you go. That's it. Not rocket science. It's absolutely unfolding like that yet again. You should not be surprised. And it actually did the same thing last cycle. The only difference that's huge there is that we didn't hit a new all-time high. But what else was different? The United States government attacking all of us as XRP holders via the SEC. That was a bit different, which is why XRP is the only top 10 coin last cycle that didn't hit a new all-time high. But now XRP is thriving because it's a level playing field now. And that shouldn't be surprising anyone because XRP just works. Of course speculators desire it. It's not hard to figure out. Here's a post from CW, XRP price chart. It says XRP has a buy wall just below it, and it hasn't sell wall. There is support and no resistance. So in his opinion, there's no notable resistance above, thin air from here. So maybe you hit some buyer exhaustion, but once that picks back up, especially when the whole market starts going, if that's a correct analysis, and for the foreseeable future, there's no resistance, this thing's going to rocket. When there's thin air, that's when magic happens right there. Now, as far as support, you can see he's siding here, roughly around $3.40. That's that zone. The one below it, about $3.20. And then he's got one closer to like $2.90. And by the way, so yeah, there are people down here that probably have a bunch of bids because in the unlikely event that happens, they're ready to scoop up people's fear and buy XRP on the cheap comparatively. Doesn't mean we're going to hit that though, okay? It does not. He's just showing what support levels are. And Dark Defender, he clearly agrees here. He showed supports here of $3.40 and $3.20. That's the same thing that CW is highlighting right here. So they're agreeing on that point. Doesn't mean it has to go below that. They're just noting what they are. Now, as far as targets, Dark Defender has cited $5.85 and also $9.76, all-time high plus. I will not be surprised if that happens. Not in the least. My suspicion is that this cycle is going to be a lot more bananas than what we saw in 2021. That's my for fun guess. Let's see if that comes to pass. But that's my for fun guess. Here's a post from chart analyst XR Punky. He says, just simple technical analysis. Target of $20 plus XRP is a given. He said plus minus, so around $20 is what he means. But he's saying what he's saying there is $20 XRP is a given. That's the takeaway. That's his opinion. It's just going to happen. He's in the company of a ton of reputable chart analysts that are saying about the same thing. There are so many reputable chart analysts that have been around for a long time, and they're like, "Yep, $20 plus, sure, yeah." Take it for what it's worth. I'm just saying, when this many analysts have the same or similar opinion, very frequently they are correct. That's a key takeaway. Here's a post from chart analyst Steph is Crypto, the final XRP wave. And you can see he's pointing up here, XRP getting close to $24. And he did accurately call XRP breaking out in 2024. He's one of many analysts I follow that accurately called that. He thinks it's getting up there. And this is not crazy stuff. And here's a kind of funny post from chart analyst Chart Nerd. And he wrote, it's all about perspective. We're still so early that 1.1 XRP can only buy you a McDonald's Happy Meal, $3.99 at the time he posted this. Send it to $27. Thanks in advance. So he does buy into the idea of XRP getting close to $30. He said $27 here. And a little over 1 XRP, just 1.1 XRP at the time he posted this yesterday. It was $3.99. A Happy Meal. Yeah, I think that people are going to look back on this in like 10 years, 20 years, be like, oh my God, those people really got to buy XRP that cheap. Oh my God. And they'll just be wishing that they had this opportunity. We are very fortunate, folks. We are part of the less than 1% of humans that have ever even heard of XRP. That's how rare this is. Do you realize that? Like, way less than 1% of humans have ever bought XRP. That's a fact. Way less. And so to know that that's the case, and I said two that's, you only need one that. To know that's the case, you only... and you see that XRP already went to $3.65 with almost no human having ever bought XRP. That's amazing to me. Not enough people look at it like that, but damn, it's true. Here's a post from chart analyst Greg Crypto. He says, the chasm, touching it, $11 and surpassing it, $37. And you can see he's got this trend line here, and he's titled this chasm. So if you just hit this lower end, you're still easily at $11. The more bullish perspective here, $37. So I start to get skeptical when you're talking about that, but even and I admit I'm more conservative, and I could be wrong. That could be the case. It's possible this cycle gets that high. I am not counting on it getting that high. In fact, if I had to bet, I'd say no. But I'm just a dude with an opinion. Just everybody's entitled to have an opinion. And I could be wrong. But, you know, with each increasing dollar, the more I'm like, I don't know. Which logic dictates should be my perspective and my approach. Here's a post from chart analyst Crypto Insight UK. It says potential hidden bullish divergence forming on the hourly XRP chart as the relative strength index makes a lower low and price makes a higher low. So that's what he thinks is playing out here. Bullish times ahead, let's say. We are so fortunate to be XRP holders at this particular juncture in time. There's never been a better point in history to be an XRP holder, in my opinion. And some people would argue and say, no, 2013 was better. And I'm like, well, it depends on what you mean by that. Yeah, you could have gotten a bigger ROI, but what about the risk? There's way less risk now. It's like now XRP, it's way undervalued in my humble opinion, but the risk is way less because it's already been adopted. We're not wondering if it's going to be a thing. Back in 2013, it would be way harder to put serious money into XRP that would result in life-changing wealth because it was way more risky in 2013. Let's just be real about that. That's why I say, like, this is the sweet spot to where, yeah, it's a lot more than half a penny. Got it. But almost nobody's ever held it. And it's not like gambling at this point. It just is adopted. It is useful. And it just keeps going more and more that direction. That's why so many publicly traded companies have just started holding XRP as a treasury reserve asset and publicly announced it. Like, there are reasons this is happening. And there are companies, publicly traded companies, that this year have publicly announced that they are not just holding it as a treasury reserve asset, but they're using XRP in their corporate treasury flows internally. And so it makes a lot of sense, actually, especially if you're a very large company and you've got operations in various countries using various fiat currencies, and you can bridge those currencies yourself internally in your company. And by the way, you can use Ripple's technology to use that. RippleNet actually does that. And so they used to have, branding wise, RippleNet, which is now RippleNet, with XRP as a bridge currency, but back in the day, they had branding called XVIA. XVIA is how you spell it. XVIA. And it was the same thing as just using XRP as a bridge currency, like you'd pitch it to one of their fintech companies, but it was for corporates instead. So it functionally does the same thing, but if you're a large company and you need to bridge currencies, you can do that internally. And so what I'm telling you is that publicly there have been companies that have announced they're literally doing that. They're using XRP in their actual company flows. That's happening today. So what I'm saying is XRP is way less of a gamble than ever before. And that's on top of everything else. Like tokenization is really taking over. That was just a no-brainer. I talked about that the better part of a decade ago. That's coming to pass. Obviously, you've got U.S. Treasuries tokenized on the XRP ledger, money market funds tokenized on the XRP ledger. It's all going the right way. You've got Dubai now, tokenization of deeds, land deeds on the XRP ledger. And that all requires XRP in order to exist. For every single transaction, in fact, XRP is required. So that's what I'm saying. Like, XRP already won. So this is why this is the best time in history to be an XRP holder, because it's priced low enough that you can still get wild returns, but you also don't have the same risk that you had in 2013 when it wasn't really adopted for anything. Like, even Ripple wasn't using it for anything back in 2013. It was way more of a gamble. So I don't know about you, but I'm pretty damn thankful. I'm just saying. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.